Welcome to Medicated Babbling, the rants, the laughs, the tiny baby steps that get us through chronic illness. It's Janet Thomas, and before we get started, quick disclaimer, I am not a health practitioner of any kind. I'm a person with chronic illness and opinions. It's my first Zoom podcast. This is so exciting. Again, on the list of things to do to figure out how to record a podcast over Zoom or whatever, Lena was kind enough to come on and help me test it out. Lene Andersen, she's been on the podcast before. She's an award-winning writer, health and disability advocate, and a photographer, and she's also had juvenile arthritis since she was 4. So, yeah, she's been dealing with this whole chronic illness thing for just a wee bit. I'll leave her links in the show notes, but you can find pretty much everything on her site, The Seated View. She has a blog, she has links to all her social media. It's all there. Again, I'll put the link in the show notes. And in addition to being an awesome person, we're also friends. So today we're putting the babbling in Medicated Babbling. We decided to talk about how we're doing with society starting to open up after the initial wave of coronavirus. And then tangents instantly happened. We talk about Mother's Day, accessibility, and yeah, COVID makes an appearance, but it's just one of the topics. Just to place this in time, because everything changes so much right now, we recorded on May 23rd, when Toronto is starting to get some things reopened, but it was also just announced we had an increase in cases. So obviously that increase isn't because of the changes that were just made. We won't see the results of that for a couple weeks, but I don't know. It doesn't feel very reassuring that the case numbers aren't relatively stable before we relax measures. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough position for everybody to be in. And, we talk about it in the episode, so here we go. But we thought we'd chat about the whole reopening business, which is kind of extra scary when they announce there's even more cases now than...
Oh, I know. I was reading in the papers that they thought it might have been related to Mother's Day and people kind of breaking the rules and going, but I have to see my mother. It's like, sure, why not? And give her coronavirus as a present.
Yeah, I texted my mom because I had a migraine, but I didn't call her till the next day because migraine, and she didn't see the text, so she thought I was a bad daughter, and then she saw, when she answered the phone, she saw the text or whatever, and she's like, oh, you texted!
Oh, that's so nice.
Like, yes, I am not that bad of a daughter.
No, well, I went through my usual thing with my mother and called her to wish her a happy Mother's Day, and despite the fact that she doesn't like Mother's Day, she says it's invented by the advertising industry and she would much rather have attention on any other day of the year. When I was growing up, she actually got mad when we wished her a happy Mother's Day. I think it was okay this year because she misses us a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think it was invented, like there was a good intention behind it, but yeah, commercial interests took it over really quick. And then the woman that was pushed for it was trying to get rid of it. It's a whole thing.
It's a thing. It's actually a fun deep dive into a rabbit hole if you have the time.
And my mom was also, for people that couldn't conceive and wanted children, like, it's not a great holiday.
No.
So, yeah, she didn't like it for that reason. I don't think she cared about the commercial part so much. But anyway, our moms are weird.
Yeah, well, Yeah, I wrote a piece for Health Central on Mother's Day when you can't be a mother, because I never had kids because of my rheumatoid arthritis, and it does. The rest of the year I'm fine with it. I've found peace with it, but that day wasn't too bad this year because I didn't go outside and see all the stores festooned in pink and chocolate, and which I also can't have because not allergies. So it's kind of a double sting.
I hear ya. Yeah, I can't have the chocolate either because migraine trigger. So, but yeah.
It's enough to drive you to drink, but migraine trigger.
Yeah, no, I know. I know. So I was last Christmas. We were trying to figure out. A family was trying to figure out what to make and that sort of thing. And I'm like, well, basically, if it's fun, I can't have it.
Yes. Yes.
If it's really yummy and really fun, no, not allowed.
Yeah.
Though I did find, and I haven't installed it yet. Actually, I should remind myself. There is an app where you track what you've eaten and whatnot, and it determines statistically whether it's actually a trigger or not, where there's actually a correlation. Because some of this for me, it's like, try once, that could be a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
The second time something gets put on the maybe this is a trigger list.
Mm-hmm.
And then things often sit there for quite a while because I'm like,
when you've had a reaction twice, do you really want to do it again?
Yeah, and I mean, I figure third time's an actual pattern. That's not exactly statistically significant, but I figure that's good enough for... Anyway, and some things, like, I figure I can have pride in small amounts if I'm not stressed, but if I am, and I'm just like, I'll just avoid it altogether.
It's just, to a level, just becomes much easier,
yes.
where it's just like, I'm not going to bother.
But this is not what we're supposed to be talking about. Not that it really matters. I don't care. We can talk about whatever. The whole reason, well, other than I love talking to you, but is that it gets so, as we were talking about before we started, the whole air conditioning versus heat versus sunlight versus temperature outside and inside is always crazy. So this time of year. So, I didn't want to have to do anything too strenuous.
No, and it works, but it's like, hi, audience. Janet and I talk to each other quite a lot, and there are always sidetracks.
Yeah, no, this is a very loose topic, maybe. We'll see how it turns out. But yeah, I don't know. See, okay, I'm selfish, because I'm human, and the whole, like, opening up retail and curbside pickup, I'm like, a lot of that works better for the suburbs than it does downtown.
Oh yeah, like that's fantastic if you have a car, but yeah.
But what I'm hoping, even though it doesn't work for me as well, is that it like takes the pressure off of Amazon and the like, so that my orders won't take forever to come in anymore.
Yeah, I'm waiting for part 2 of an order I made couple weeks ago. Part 1 came earlier this week, so I was all hopeful, but no, still waiting for part 2.
I hear you, and I'm not good with waiting.
No, I'm the kind of person who stands in front of the microwave and says, hurry up.
See, I don't do that so much as I just go find something else to do and forget about it.
Oh yeah, and then come back 2 hours later and go, where's my tea? Yeah, I do that all the time. Anyway, so opening up, which is scary.
But I figure, I don't know, I doubt my behavior will change that much as things open up.
Yeah, I just think I'll resent it more. Like, I've stayed inside for 2 months now, and I've been out, like, you can literally count the times I've been out on one hand, and I'm not using literally metaphorically in that sentence. But it's, and when I go out, it's less than 5-10 minutes. And I think, and it's been kind of okay. It's been hard, but it's been kind of okay when we were all in it together. And now when everybody who are increasingly thinking, oh, that means it's over, we can just go outside. It's like, no, it doesn't. It just means that the government is not going to take responsibility for our behavior anymore and transferring it on to us. And it just sort of, every time I go out, it proves to me that we can't be trusted. Like, just so many people not wearing masks, and so many people not worrying about physical distancing, and it just becomes more and more scary. I was out last weekend, went for a walk, and had to cut it short because I couldn't handle it. It was just too frightening. So, and then you're looking at also decisions to open up in the face of not a flattened curve, but actually increase in numbers. And in Toronto, where it used to be that long-term care home tragically were responsible for, I think, 80% of cases. Now that seems to be under control, and we're talking community spread that they can't track or are not tracking because everything is not in place to track it and test and contact trace and all of that. So it's just scarier and scarier.
Speaking of tracking, because this is a tangent, but it's an on-topic tangent, so I'm proud of myself. I did just listen to an episode of Spark where they were talking about...
That's a CBC podcast, right?
Yes. I meant to... I have the link open, and I was going to tweet it, but I haven't done that yet. So I'll do that in a little bit. So it'll be out beforehand. I'll put it in the show notes, too. They do have an app. It's not out yet, because it's still getting approval, that will do a lot of tracing. And they're taking a lot of privacy.
Interpersonal tracing?
Yeah, you need to have Bluetooth and a smartphone.
Oh, okay.
So I think I was only half listening because I was multitasking. So that's why I wanted to post the link, because I don't have all the details. It'll track your location, but they are putting privacy things into it as well. Like, a lot of the information will be stored on your phone and only be there for like 30 days and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But they're thinking, like, if you're, let's say, in an area that was, high risk or something, you might get different recommendations than someone else. Mm-hmm. Or if so, and it'll be a lot more personalized, which is also going to be weird, because then everybody's going to be in that situation where, like, okay, I went here or I live here and it's a high risk area, so I should stay, home except for once a week. But meanwhile, my boss is, in all clear and wondering what the heck is going on. So well, it's interesting.
I do have hopes that I think one of the great things about the pandemic, and like leave it to me to try desperately to find a silver lining, is that employers have actually finally realized that, oh yes, remote work is not only possible, but it can also work just fine and maybe even increase productivity, which those of us with chronic illness and disability have been rejected for years because no, FaceTime is important. So I'm hoping that the jobs that can be done remotely will just continue to be either an option, at least part of the week, say, or maybe wholly for those of us who are high risk, but then what impact that has on any kind of career track,
Yeah, that's
on the other hand,
out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
On the other hand, you're alive to kind of deal with it. But, but there are still a lot of people who have to be at a place in order to work, and that doesn't work so much for them.
Yeah, I find it's really interesting that it's very high status and very low status jobs that are essential. Mm-hmm. Like doctors, scientists, and people that do the cleaning and the personal support workers. And like, it's just, I find it really interesting.
Yeah. And one of the things, we keep talking about healthcare workers and, the heroes of the front line and the grocery store clerks. And it's like, can we talk about janitors, please? Like the people who are cleaning so we can stay safe. Mm-hmm. Like janitors are, and sure, doctors and nurses, etc., are heroes and first responders and all of that. But janitors, shout out to janitors, because thank you.
Oh yeah, totally. And even like pre-pandemic, I mean, yeah, it's a total team effort. If the rooms aren't sanitized between patients and things like that, like, it's a nightmare. Mm-hmm. Anybody that, like, even the people that do the laundry, like, it just, there's so many things that you don't think of until you have to think of it.
Yeah, exactly. I read an article about, I think one of the Indigo is a large bookstore in Canada that was open was the one on Bloor Street, which is really big, and it has like this nice stairway in the middle. And somebody was quoted as like they are assigning certain people to like wash everything, except including the banister. And somebody was saying, "Oh wow, this is really dirty because it has never been cleaned before." Like this is one of the things that when you are a high risk, or which I am partly because of RA, but also because I'm on an immunosuppressant medication. This is one of the things you learn. Don't touch things that are public, get touched by a lot of hands, and is unlikely to get cleaned off. And then that's ATM buttons, pin pad buttons, elevator buttons, banisters, etc., right?
I am hoping that more things become automated in terms of like...
Yes.
Like, I remember apartment buildings and condos, you used to have to use your key and open the door with your hand, which was always annoying when you were coming home with bags of groceries or shopping or whatever. Yeah. So now, most of them have switched over. I'm sure there's still some that haven't. But, like, I remember going to my grandmother's building ages and ages ago, and you had to put the key in, but it was on the side, and then the door would automatically open. I'm like, this is amazing. Why doesn't everybody have this? And now, of course, I do have the sliding door, so life is good.
Well, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Like and to me, it's a universal accessibility issue. It's like, yeah, don't give me a button. Okay, a button is better than nothing, but it's usually placed way too high for anybody in a chair to reach it. The automatic door opener button, that is. But if you just do a thing that opens when you come within the view of a sensor, guess what? That's accessible to everyone.
I know. And I hope there's more, but I hope there's other things other than just the doors that become automated.
Yeah.
because that would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw somebody talking about office towers installing for the elevator instead of having a lot of, like, being able to stagger people and installing that thing where you say, I want to go to the 14th floor, and it then tells you that that's a particular elevator instead of you standing there looking at everything. But again, like, those things tend to not be accessible when you use the wheelchair. So yay.
Yeah, I mean, there's always problems to everything. Nothing's perfect, but, you know, we can get a little closer, I think.
I think so, but that is one of my current soapboxes, is all these efforts that are meant to protect us from coronavirus. There isn't a lot of talk about the accessibility of the measures.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I completely understand the plexiglass shields that are at checkout counters at my pharmacist and at a lot of stores that are opening up now, but it makes it really difficult when you use a wheelchair, because it makes it next to impossible to interact with things like the pin pad to pay your bills, etc.
Yeah, and I find I also I've known this a long time, but I read lips a lot. I think of it as part of listening. So the whole mask thing, I think everybody's mumbling.
Well, and it's just like, and this conversation also didn't happen. Like, what do you do if you're deaf or hard of hearing and you're relying on facial expressions? And like, facial expressions is a huge part of ASL, or if you're reading lips, like, there's this whole group of people that have been completely cut off.
Mom found, she found an article or something, this was a while back, of people were making the cloth masks, but they put like a plastic insert in the, so that you could see the person's lips. But yeah, you'd have to know to do that because you had a deaf person in your life, or, you know, that's not just going to be the random person that you're going to be interacting with.
Exactly, which means it's going to be even harder for somebody like with that kind of disability to basically figure things out in the world. So,
So I went, in my high school, we had some deaf students, which is why I learned I read lips, because I remember we could communicate without any vocalizations whatsoever. I'm like, what? Nobody else does this? This is what we do. Anyway, I know like a few very basic signs, but one of them is the thank you. And it's my instinct now to use it but nobody else would know what it is. So,
yes. Well, but I wonder if that's going to be more of a thing, because now that we have to pivot away from handshakes and hugs and etc., are people going to start using more signs, which would be interesting.
Yeah, and which the sign language people, you know, people that use it now are probably like, see, it's awesome. Why weren't you using this the whole time?
Well, exactly, right? So this became more about accessibility than the opening up, but I guess the two are linked.
It's all related.
It is.
But yeah, I know when I was, you know, at the tail end of working, I asked for permission to work from home can't speak. So I worked from home part of the time, just sort of when it was, you know, necessary or convenient. But yeah, they would not give me permission to work from home full time. And so I just did it anyway, and nobody said anything. So I just did it. So I thought I'd ask for forgiveness instead of permission. And that worked out, but that's not a typical case.
No, but it's one of those things. It is so. It's such a. How to describe this? It's so old-fashioned and unnecessary. I read a book called. It was about how to deal with overwhelm, and it was especially from women's point of view, right? And it basically said. It's like, listen, like, this whole FaceTime is necessary. It's just ridiculous, because it's in so many jobs. And again, like, yes, so many jobs that are related to having a certain level of privilege is there. But it's like you're looking at it and going, why do you have to go to work? I work remotely. Like, my employer's in the U.S.
That's one of the reasons I could get away with working from home without asking for permission, was because I very rarely worked with anyone that was actually physically in my office.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I had people that were on my team, but we always worked with other people's teams. So it was just, it was crazy. Anyway, I thought of something and then I forgot it. Never mind.
But yeah, like,
accessibility and stuff like that. this whole remote doctor's appointments thing is
Oh
awesome.
my God.
And
yes.
a lot of them seem to hate it. They're like, but I want to see people. And I'm like, bloody hell. It takes me like an hour and a half to get there. Then I have to wait. Though granted, now they're doing the COVID thing, so they're ferrying you in. And it's, I think a lot more militarized in terms of the timing. Then I have to wait like at least half an hour, if not more. And then I go to have a 5-minute appointment, at which point you drop a bombshell on me and I'm like emotionally distraught. So then I have to like keep my shit together for the hour and a half to head home. And then I can like, yeah. It's
there are absolutely times when if an in-person doctor's appointment is important.
Definitely.
But there are so many other times when, and my doctors tend to be closer, but even just seeing my family doctor, which I used to do pre-pandemic to get my shot of biologic medication because my dexterity in my hands sucks so much that I can't do it myself. But it would mean that we're talking between half an hour if I was lucky, or up to an hour of my time, and in order to get into the office to see the nurse or the doctor, have a shot, talk about everything else unhealth related, because by then, like, I'm there, I'm healthy, I'm just there to get a shot. So we chit chat, right? But even without the chit chat, if you're looking at just the shot time, that's less than 5 minutes. And you're going to take an hour out of my day for that. Now, granted, I do need to be there in person for a shot that helps. But like, if you're just there to get a repeat prescription, or you're there to get a form filled out, or you're there to follow up on a test, it can be done by a phone call. And I'm finding that as I've had a couple of telehealth appointments, they happen on time. They move right along, and I'm very happy with it. And I do things that it needs to say, because I bet you could cut down waiting periods in doctors' offices if half of the people who don't need to be seen.
I would concur, except I know what's going to happen is they'll just schedule more people, and then the wait times will be back to where they were.
Yeah.
So I share the hope, but it probably won't pan out.
I think one of the tricks to cutting down wait time is figuring out when the clinic starts and booking it first thing. Like I don't book my appointment first thing in the morning because I don't work well first thing in the morning. So it's first appointment after lunch.
Don't tell people that. That's my trick too. I don't want everybody else stealing that. First one after lunch is always the one I try for. Oh, yeah.
And if I have to, like, once you start getting to like 2 or 3 o'clock, forget about it. You're going to be sitting there for 45 minutes to an hour if you're lucky.
And it's also sort of doctor specific. I know one of my old doctors, Friday afternoons, I think he sort of had that set aside for paperwork. He'd take appointments, but otherwise he had to go do his paperwork. So I think the wait times were comparable. But he would talk to me forever because he did, like, none of this 5 minutes kick you out of the office. It's like, no, please talk to me. Otherwise, I have to go doing the boring part of my job that I hate.
This was Dr. G, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we go to the same clinic. This was not my doctor. And he had this rule that you could only talk about one thing.
Oh, yeah, I broke that all the time.
Yeah, and he was great if you are a generally healthy person, but not great for people with chronic illness. But he would last, like, his one, an assembly line of 5-minute appointments, and he would keep it moving, and he would be more or less on time.
He wasn't bad.
But I vastly prefer my doctor, who will actually sit and talk to you until you're done. And so she tends to run late, but I'll put up with it because I have a chronic illness. I am not that simple. I'm not basic. I'm medically extra.
I also learned when to ignore him because, I remember once I think it was like the annual physical. So that's a longer appointment anyway. And I'm like, okay, there's 3 things. And he did the whole only 1 thing per appointment. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Okay. So here's the first one. And we did everything like he was taking my blood pressure while we were talking about this. And we got through all 3 things, lickety split, no problem. There was still time even just to chit chat while we were doing all the rest of it. So yeah, just plow through, ignore them. It's all good.
Oh yeah. Pretty much. So, yeah. So this was allegedly about it. We said, yeah, let's talk about opening up, and then we sidetracked as usual. This was a kind of very focused version of our normal conversations, which looks like a ball of yarn that a kitten got into.
Yes, but like you said, it's more focused because this time we're not like clicking on this and doing that and going what, and we're not. It's not like late in the evening when all the brain cells have gone to sleep but haven't told us.
Yeah, until we actually like click on the meeting to start and go hi.
Yeah. I'm gonna pretend to be awake. Oh, that didn't last long.
Yeah, well, at least so Janet crochets, and she'll crochet during the meeting, which means her finger, like the part of your brain that wants to skid off and do other things, that's kind of connected to your hands doing something, is occupied. But I can't knit anymore, so sometimes during these meetings I admit to kind of going on like real estate listings and looking at the house porn or something in the meantime, because that part of my hands and that part of my brain need something to do in order to stay reasonably focused. But it also it also messes with my focus. So yeah, that's a mess.
Heather Ordover, she has a whole thing that I don't know if it's the official term, it's the term she uses, which is cognitive anchoring. Mm-hmm. And that's that whole, like, if you're doodling so that you can pay attention kind of thing, or the crocheting or whatever. And yeah, that was the other perk of working from home, was I could do things like that. When I was in the office, even though we weren't supposed to go on random websites, it was like the cute cat pictures, like cute overload and those sorts of things. Because if you go do your email or something, your brain's going to switch over.
Oh yeah, completely.
And you just need that little bit so your brain can have...
But I love that. This was very useful. Cognitive anchoring. I'm not distractible. It's cognitive anchoring.
Yeah, she's thinking of I think she has a talk on it. I can't remember. But she was thinking of doing another webinar, because especially with kids with like ADD, ADHD, whatever it's called these days, they're having a lot of problems with the online
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I know one of my friends has, one of her sons has ADHD and was in school, was like basically had his individualized education plan, and had at the time like Walkman iPod kind of thing, so he could just pop it in and play music when he had a fidget spinner ish thing, and could just use that to help him focus in class, and it worked really well.
Oh yeah, even just letting people stand instead of sit in their desks can do magic. But it's funny though, because I know. Again, throwing my poor mother under the bus. If I'm doing something and she thinks it's really important, whatever she's saying, and I'm like doodling or doing whatever so that I can focus on it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's she went to school, she was taught by nuns. I don't know if it's their voices. It sounds like their voices coming out where it's like, put everything down. You that you're not paying attention if you're doing these other things. Yeah. It's like, no, exactly the opposite.
Yeah, like if I pick up my phone and look at it, then I get that, but because that hits the rude button with me too. Although I have been in conversations with your mother where it's just like, a text came in and just look at it, and she stops until I'm done. And I'm like, right, I'm being rude, put it down. So yeah, cognitive anchoring. There you go. I learned something today.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing, this is an unintended consequence of COVID. Is this like mother themed this time?
I think so.
Anyway, because now the whole family is doing the Zoom thing. We were doing Skype for a while now. It seems to be always Zoom. And oh my gosh, I have to be so good about my statuses, because if I move that mouse, half the time my mom calls me. And I'm like, what the heck? This is dangerous. Who taught her technology?
I think you did.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Okay. I think we're running out of steam.
Okay.
I think that's more than enough blah blah. Hope you liked our rambling conversation. There were a few times in there when the Zoom or the internet lag made things sound just a little funny, but I think this is a success. I'm totally okay with it. One thing I did forget to do was I like to end the podcast on a dash of happy, but I forgot completely. So I'm going to use Lena's shout out to all the janitors everywhere for keeping us safe and keeping everything clean and hygienic as her dash of happy, because yes, that's awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This time, my dash of happy is air conditioning. It gets super hot in my condo, and this place would be unlivable right now if there was no air conditioning. I honestly don't know what people are going to do this summer. I mean, we've had a little heat wave, and I think they've opened up a few cooling centers, but usually it's libraries and things like that that are the cooling centers, and most of that's still closed. I mean, I remember hiding from the heat, going to the pool, or like hiding in a mall or a movie theater somewhere that's air conditioning. Not everything's an option right now. Yeah, I'm worried about people. I'm worried about people for all sorts of reasons. But this is not about that. This is about why I'm happy, and I am very happy that my air conditioning is on. I couldn't live without it. All right, I think that is the end. Let's wrap up and do all the housekeeping. As always, please subscribe. I mean, I know everybody says it, but extra please subscribe because there is no schedule. Launch this once a month, usually near the end of the month, but there's no set date. And do the whole rate and review thing. Recommend it to a friend, subscribe a friend, do all those things. You can find Medicated Babbling pretty much anywhere on the internet. There's a website that doesn't have much. Most of the social medias I'm on, not very often, but I'm there. I try. Just search for Medicated Babbling. It should come up. Except for Twitter. I'm Babbling on Twitter because Medicated Babbling was too long. I also post stuff on Instagram under JT Art and stuff for my own personal stuff. Just random shit. I'm on the internet. Go find me if you want. You don't have to. So again, thanks to Lena for being my guest and helping me out. To Fresh Kills for the intro and outro music. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And the listeners. I can't believe that you guys are still listening to me blather. This is weird. Anyway, so thank you for listening. And don't forget you matter, and I'll talk to you next time.
1, 2, 3, 4, get it. 1, 2, 3, 4, get it. 1, 2, 3, 4, get it. 4, 4, 4.